Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'd like to show you how I made this Pokemon versus Mortal Kombat mashup. So let's get straight into the project.
Round 1, fight!
We're going to start by setting up the LEDs for Pikachu's eyes. As you can see, I've asked Magic Third Hand to do this for me because I'm terrible at it. But I did go on to ask him to extend the wire. Because I thought it'd be a bit too short between the LED wire and the battery pack piece. So he extended the wire for me, but yeah, turns out I didn't really need it. But you know, let's not tell him because I don't want him to do the stare, the dad stare. Now that he has done his bit, it is my turn to do my bit, which is obviously the cool, fun bit. Starting off with the armature, I am going to sort of Dremel a resting place for the wire to go on the underside of my wooden plaque, and the wire to sort of go straight through this hole here, there. And then just sort of glue it in. It gives it a nice stable base for underneath, and it will keep the armature, hopefully, standing throughout the whole process. Now I am adding what will be Pikachu's arms. I'm going to do that by cutting a small length of wire and then attaching it together with some floral wire and then gluing it down just to make sure that it doesn't move ever again. Now I am going to attach what will be Pikachu's tail. It's literally just a piece of floral wire twisted on itself and then wrapped around the armature that I've already made. I did actually put this in the wrong place, so if you're going to make a tail, make sure you stick it to where his butt should be and not where his leg is. Now I'm going on to attach the LED wires. As you can see, I clearly have way too much wire, but I'm not going to tell Andy that because he spent ages extending it for me and I really don't want the look, you know, that one again. This is where I go on to attach a load of wire that is completely needless and just spent the entire time stabbing me. So I do eventually decide to cut these off. I literally don't use them at all, but because you're going to see them throughout the entire process, I figured I'd show you how I made them. But yeah, they literally serve to just stab me the entire time. Now I'm going to bulk out the main bit while stabbing myself loads. Bulk out where my Pikachu will be. And I want him to be standing on a plinth, so I am literally going to bulk out the entire thing with foil. And, well, this is the entire process. As you can see, I have left a patch without any foil, and that is because I wanted to create a little housing for my battery pack. I have literally created like a cube type thing out of balsa wood. Then I am going to go on and pack it out a little bit with some foil so that I can sort of disguise it as a rock later on. Because of the wires, I cannot create Pikachu's head separately like I normally would with most of my other sculptures. So I'm going to try and stabilise his eyeballs by attaching a small bit of toothpick in between the eyes, gluing that together, and then attempting to make his head whilst it's attached to the body. It was really quite a difficult process, but it's doable. And there are times where I look at this and think, what on earth am I doing? As you can probably see from the amateur, it looks weird. It does not look anything like a Pikachu. Now it is time to put some skin on these bones. I am using super sculpey polymer clay. I do end up using some cos clay as well. It's also at this point that Andy decided to tell me that I had made something rather specific to men. And I'm inclined to agree with him. But you have to look past that. You have to see the Pikachu, the inner Pikachu. I also go on to use sculpey translucent clay over the eyeballs. I'm literally looking at this right now whilst I'm claying and going, what on earth have I made? Once I had made a more generalised shape of Pikachu's head, as opposed to whatever it was I was making before, I started attaching the smaller details to his face. So I balled up 2 pieces of clay to make his sort of snout shape, and then a small triangle for his bottom lip. Once I'd done that, I started seeing a Pikachu all of a sudden, and I stopped panicking about what on earth I was making. I wanted to give Pikachu a more aggressive look because I need to somehow equate, I don't know, the Raiden thing to him. I know that Raiden isn't a bad guy, although he does look pretty badass in number 11. He's not generally classed as a bad guy, but he needs to have a more aggressive fighting pose, and so I did that using, I don't know, Pikachu's eyebrows. To make Pikachu's tail, I am using my cosplay, and I am also using my make one, trace one method. It's a proven and works method for me. So that I can attach his tail to the wire in 2 halves and then sort of, I don't know, squish his tail together that way, as opposed to trying to attach a zigzaggy tail to a straight piece of wire. It would be impossible. So I came up with this method instead. Literally, I put one side on, smoothed that onto the body, and then attached the other side. It was literally the only way I could think of doing it. If you can come up with a better way, then please, by all means, let me know. Now it is time to add Raiden to my Pikachu. I'm doing that by utilising all of Raiden's clothing. I have based this guy off of the original in blue, but there are so many different variations of Raiden over the years. He has evolved, much like a Pokemon. Ha! To add some depth to his clothing, add some snakes of clay to where there would be folds and wrinkles in his clothing. It really gives a good dimension to your piece, and once you've done that, blended them in, you should have something that looks a lot like a really angry weasel in his pyjamas. To make all of the flowy, ribbony, belty bits, I used the same method that I did with his tail by sort of sandwiching a piece of floral wire between two bits of clay. It just helps to reinforce the flowy, belty bit thing, and gives it a little bit of stabilisation. Stabilisation? Is that a word? I don't think that's a word, but it stabilises the flowy bit. Did that make sense? I'm hoping that made sense. It didn't make sense to me. To make Raiden's hat, I literally folded a piece of foil in half, then used a compass to cut a circle out. Once I'd got my circle, I cut down to the centre dot where the compass had been and sort of folded it in on itself. Then I taped the two edges together and ta-da, I have got one of those wonderful traditional Chinese hats. I'm not sure what they're called. I'm going to Google that. I'm going to find out what that hat is called. 2 seconds. It's called a rice hat. I don't know why I expected it to have a grand name. It doesn't. It's literally just called a rice hat. So right now, this is what not to do. I literally spent absolutely ages doing this to realise that I hated it so much. I was trying to create like a weave effect, which is the traditional shape and style of the hat. But this is how it ended up. So we get rid of that. And we go with idea number 2. To attach the hat and Pikachu's ears to the head, I literally just stabbed through 2 cocktail sticks. Well, I used 1 cocktail stick, cut it in half, and then just sort of jabbed it through the hat and into the head, and then built Pikachu's ears off of that. It then gave the ears a skeleton and structure as well, so there should be a lot less chance of breaking those, and everything is stuck together. It can't come off. For the base, I am using plaster of Paris. Right here I'm doing the correct thing and measuring out everything like a good little girl, but I don't adopt this method for very long. And then I just started making mixtures up to sort of how I wanted the thickness of the plaster of Paris. Now I did check online before I did this, and you can put plaster of Paris in the oven with polymer clay and stuff like that. You just have to keep it at a low temperature, otherwise you do risk causing an explosion. I did read explosion a couple of times. It was a little bit daunting. I did panic the whole way. I literally sat in front of my oven for half an hour. But it worked out fine. So, you know, the advice was correct. You can use plaster of Paris in the oven. To make the battery pack part of the diorama, I put down a piece of cling film and then plastered over the top. That way I could separate the 2 pieces afterwards, and I should, in theory, have something that slots straight in to the void that was there before. In theory. It did kind of work out for me, but I did have patchy work going on with the plaster, so I just covered the rest of the rock with a bit of polymer clay and hoped for the best. So it was quite late in the game where I realised that the diorama kind of needed somebody else on there as well. It just kind of looked like Pikachu standing on a rock. So, you know, as per my way of working all the time, I decided last minute I needed to add Mew, make her into Mewlina, obviously, because that was a great name mashup, so I needed to make it. Spent ages thinking that through, just so you know. So yeah, kind of late on, and I should have planned it probably a little bit better, but I did sculpt a little Mew to go into the diorama a little bit late. But if I were you, I would try and plan these things ahead rather than like me and do it last minute. To make her tail, I went over to my cosplay again, just so that I know that the tail will remain bendy, even after baking, so should I knock it or anything else, it won't break. Once I had created her tail, I then had to figure out a way to attach her to the diorama. It was a little bit of a wobbly situation, I have to admit. When it came to baking her, I did have to find ways of propping her up during the baking process, which is also why I sat in front of the oven for the full cook time, because I was terrified she was going to fall over. So this is why I say to plan ahead, because if I had thought about it, she would have had armature that was based into the wooden structure at the bottom rather than balancing precariously off of the edge of a bit of plasticine. Plaster? No, it's not plasticine. Plaster of Paris. Oh my goodness, I'm having one of those days. I'm so sorry. To make Pikachu's lightning, I am using floral wire basically for the whole thing, just attaching it with a small piece of polymer clay at each join, where I have wrapped the floral wire together, but otherwise I have left it just as the floral wire. I think it probably looks a little bit better that way.
Finish her!
I wanted to incorporate Muse powers into the diorama itself, so I decided to sort of create Chaos Realm, which has loads of floating rocks around it, and I'm hoping that I achieve that by attaching all these weird and wonderful rocks in different places. Tried to make them look floaty. After I did that, I popped it into the oven for its bake. Finally, I created this entire piece in one.
Round 2.
Once everything was out of the oven and I had primered either black or white depending on where I needed bright colours or darkish colours, I went on to use my Arteza acrylic paints, my usual paints to be fair, the ones I always use, to start my painting. So from what I can remember, Chaos Realm is like a really green, rocky place with floaty rocks and all the rest of it. So in order to do that, I needed to recreate the whole green thing, but at the same time I needed to take into account the lightning. So I decided to use like brighter and brighter greens closer to where the lightning was and keep a more muted green further away. I was trying to give the illusion of like the bright lightning lighting up the rocks as opposed to everything being monotone green. While the painting montage is going on, I'd just like to take a minute to thank that chapter. Like, his YouTube channel has kept me entertained for almost every project I have ever made on my own channel. So, you know, I think it's fair to say that he deserves a thank you. And on top of that, like, I can literally chronologically tell you every mass murder there has ever been thanks to his channel. So, thank you very much, that chapter. once I have finished adding all of the little details to his armor, we can call this diorama done. So thank you very much for being here, guys. It's really humbling to have you guys around. Just to know that even if it's, you know, just a few hundred of you that are watching, it's a few hundred people that are interested. So I thank you very much for being here. If you're new to the channel, then please take a minute to subscribe. It really does help me out. It helps the channel grow. So, you know, if you like this video, then please take a minute to subscribe. And if you like this channel, then, you know, share away. Get sharing. Press that share button. Thank you very much, guys. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Flawless victory.